You drop your keys on the way out the door and say it out loud. Where did I put my wallet? Nobody is there to hear you. You know nobody is there. And yet the words come anyway, spoken into an empty hallway as if some invisible listener were waiting for the answer. This happens more than you probably notice. Narrating what you are cooking, coaching yourself through a hard conversation before it happens, muttering an insult at your own reflection after a mistake, cheering yourself on, silently or out loud, before walking into a room full of strangers. Here's the strange part. You are not talking to no one. You are talking to someone. That someone is you, and the existence of that inner voice, the one running commentary nearly every waking hour, is one of the most quietly important features the human brain ever developed. Psychologists call it self-talk, and for a long time it was treated as a curiosity, something children grew out of. But the research tells a very different story. Start with a Russian psychologist named Lev Vygotsky, working in the early 20th century. Vygotsky noticed something simple but profound. Young children talk to themselves constantly while playing, stacking blocks while saying out loud what they are doing, narrating their own actions step by step. Most adults assumed this was just noise, a developmental phase children eventually grow silent out of. Vygotsky disagreed. He proposed that this talking was not noise at all. It was thinking, externalized. The child was not yet able to hold complex thoughts silently inside the mind, so the thoughts spilled outward into speech where it could be organized and understood. And here's the part that changes everything. Vygotsky argued that this speech never actually disappears as we grow up. It goes underground. It becomes what he called inner speech, the same process, just quieter, faster, and folded inward where you no longer notice it happening. In other words, that voice narrating your day is not a strange leftover habit. It is thinking itself, caught in the act. Modern neuroscience has confirmed much of what Vygotsky guessed at decades before brain imaging existed. Psychologist Charles Fernyhough at Durham University has spent years studying inner speech directly, using a method where participants are interrupted at random moments throughout the day and asked simply, "What was going through your mind right then?" His research suggests that a significant portion of human waking thought takes the form of language, an ongoing internal conversation running quietly beneath almost everything you do. But why would your brain build something so elaborate just to talk to itself? The answer connects to one of the oldest jobs your brain has, which is regulating your own behavior. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky and later researchers identified something specific about self-directed speech. It is not just commentary, it is control. Think about the last time you talked yourself through something difficult. Okay, slow down. One step at a time. You can do this. That is not idle narration. That is your prefrontal cortex, the planning and self-control center of your brain, using language as a tool to manage your own emotional and behavioral state. Speech, even silent speech, gives structure to thoughts that would otherwise stay vague and overwhelming. Researcher Ethan Kross, whose work on rumination and emotional distance has shaped much of modern psychology, found something specifically about how you talk to yourself, not just that you do it. In his studies, people who use their own name or the word you when coaching themselves through stress perform significantly better than people who use the word I. Not done that. You can handle this. Outperforms. I can handle this. Why would a single pronoun matter so much? Because using your name or you create psychological distance. It shifts your inner voice from the panicked, overwhelmed perspective of being inside the problem to the calmer, more capable perspective of someone giving advice from outside it. It is the same mechanism, essentially, behind why advice you give a friend often sounds wiser than advice you give yourself in the first person. Distant self-talk borrows that same outside vantage point and turns it inward. This explains something that might sound strange at first. Some of the most psychologically resilient people are not the ones with the quietest minds. They are the ones who have, often without realizing it, gotten very good at talking to themselves the right way, not silencing the inner voice, but directing it. There is also a physical dimension to this that researchers have only recently started untangling. Speaking out loud, even alone, appears to engage the brain differently than thinking the same words silently. A small but notable body of research suggests that verbalizing instructions to yourself, like saying "find the red mug" out loud while searching a cluttered kitchen, can improve focus and task performance compared to thinking the same instructions silently. The physical act of speech seems to recruit additional cognitive resources, almost like writing something down helps you remember it, except the paper is the air in front of you and the pen is your own voice. This is likely why people instinctively talk to themselves more under pressure, searching for lost keys, assembling furniture with confusing instructions, working through a complicated problem at a whiteboard. The stakes rise, the cognitive load increases, and the brain reaches for an old, reliable tool, externalizing thought into language to manage what silent thinking alone cannot easily hold. So, if your grandmother used to say that talking to yourself is the first sign of madness, the actual science says something close to the opposite. The voice in your head, and the version of it that occasionally slips out loud in an empty kitchen, is not a malfunction. It is one of the most sophisticated coping mechanisms your brain has ever built. A leftover, externalized echo of how you learned to think in the first place, repurposed across an entire lifetime to plan, to soothe, to focus, and to push yourself forward when nobody else is in the room to do it for you. The next time you catch yourself muttering instructions to an empty hallway, or coaching yourself through something hard using your own name instead of I, you are not behaving oddly. You are doing something humans have quietly done since before written language existed. Using your own voice, the only one that is always present, to think a little more clearly than silence alone would ever let you.